listening to the best of the Martha Zoller Show. To hear the full show each day, tune in to AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN or log in to accesswdun.com and click the Listen Live button from 9 to 11 Monday through Friday. We are talking to Attorney General Chris Carr, who is running for governor. And as you know, I have picked a side in this race, and so I am supporting Chris Carr. And he's here with us right now. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Martha Zoller. Always great to be with you.
Thank you so much. And first of all, big announcement about the number of sheriffs that around the state that are supporting you. Tell us a little bit about how important that is to have that law enforcement vote.
Yeah, Martha, we couldn't be more proud that we announced over 50 sheriffs statewide and for our Republican primary that are endorsing us. It means the world because one of the things that we have focused on and one of the things that we're supposed to do in government is to keep people safe. And to have the men and women on the front lines, both current sheriffs, former sheriffs, that will stand up and say that Chris Carr has done it the right way means the world to me. They've got to get elected. They're out in their communities. They're fighting violent crime and gang activity. We're working together on human trafficking and now organized retail theft. But they understand it. They understand. They see it every day. And to have the support of the men and women in uniform. And the other thing, too, Martha, you know this, coming out of 2020 and 2021, there was a lack of respect for law enforcement. And I truly believe those of us in public life, but then just folks in the public in general, got to stand up and support the men and women that are willing to go out there every day in a job that is not always safe, and somebody's probably praying that they're going to make it home at the end of the day. Support them through training, technology, and resources, and that's what we're going to do when I'm governor.
So just tell me a little bit about how the campaign's been going. And for those of you who may not know Chris's background, Chris started out, spent a long time with Senator Johnny Isaacson, came out of that Isaacson school, ended up being his chief of staff. Then he was the head of economic development under Governor Deal, so he understands how to bring business in the state. And then he's been involved, now this is his second term as Attorney General, and has really fought hard against human trafficking and all of the things, gangs, the really seedy stuff that we don't want to pay attention to, but we have to pay attention to. And so you've traveled the state now for a while, and what's different than you thought it was as you've traveled the state? And then what do you see as the biggest things you need to be talking about?
Well, the things you got to be talking about are jobs and safety, because those are the things that really impact Georgians every single day. And Martha, we've been out there working. You know, it's 159 counties in our state. We're the largest state east of the Mississippi. We have nearly 12 million people that have moved to and lived and stayed in and live in our great state. So there's some new folks. There's some folks that have been here for a long time. But the thing that has not changed is hard work. And when you get outside of Atlanta in particular, people want to look you in the eye, shake your hand, find out who you are, have your cell phone number, and talk about what you're going to do in public life. And so I saw that with Johnny Isaacson, whose theory was if there are two people meeting at a fork in the road, I got to be there. I've seen it with Brian Kemp. I saw it with Nathan Deal, and I saw it with Sonny Perdue. The hard work is what wins a race in the state of Georgia. It's not money. It's not endorsements. It's not anything else other than the vote of the people of our state. And there's a lot, whether you're in the mountains of North Georgia, you're on the coast, and all the development that's occurred, agriculture still is the number one industry in our state. You got to remember that. Our state's been built on agriculture, manufacturing, trade, the military, construction, hospitality. And so that job matters. And the thing that I think that we've seen, too, is this need to be prepared for the jobs of the future. Literacy, making sure kids can learn to read by the third grade, but then also aligning for the jobs of the future. And that also means being able to work with your hands, be an electrician, being a plumber, a welder, whatever it may be. But the world we live in is just different. It has changed. There's a lot going on. But one thing I know is Georgia has become the model for the United States of America and how to do it, whether it's based on jobs or safety.
Well, tomorrow we're going to have Barbara Wall on, who's head of the CTAE programs at the state of Georgia, which is doing exactly that, which is making sure that high school students are exposed to things that they can get careers in right out of high school if they want to. And so we're excited to be talking at depth about that. But one thing I hear from folks all the time, and especially those people that are like in the 28 to 35 or 25 to 35, they're having a harder time finding jobs, Chris. They're having a harder time buying their first home. They are the first generation that thinks they're not going to have it as good as their parents did. Are you seeing that as you're out on the campaign trail?
We are. And look, I've got a 21-year-old and we have a 27-year-old. These are the conversations we've had at home. And, Martha, I was just listening to the news report beforehand about the Flowery Branch principal that helped the employee that ended up getting the car. What a great story, by the way. I mean, just an uplifting story. But think about this. We did society a great disservice when somewhere in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we took shop out of high school. And we told a young person that you're not as smart as someone that goes to college. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. I've got friends that own plumbing businesses and HVAC where they can't find enough folks, and you're making a great living. But one thing is true. AI is here, and there's no doubt it's having some impact on some jobs. But the reality of the situation is it's going to create other jobs down the road. And as I was reading an article, one of the CEOs of an AI company said, look, the state that invests in technical college training is going to be the one that's ahead in the AI world, because somebody's got to build the facilities, maintain the facilities, wire those facilities. So again, we've got to go back actually into middle school and start showing kids the whole spectrum of what opportunities are out there, whether you're going to, be in the AI world or you're going to be using your hands. The future is we've got to be able to align our curriculum and make sure our students understand the jobs of the future, invest in it, market it so they know those opportunities are there.
Well, you'll be happy to hear that we just voted in. I'm on the State Board of Education representing the 9th District, that we're taking some of the math concepts from construction and other CTAE programs, and we have moved them down to the 5th grade, where we are teaching 5th graders how to measure things, how to do this kind of stuff so that they have some exposure to the math side of things like construction when they get into middle school and high school and can choose a pathway that's construction. I'm having a bench made right now for my mother-in-law's grave at North Hall High School, where they have a welding class. And that one of the things they offer to the community is that you can get things made by this welding class. And so I decided to use that service for my project, and I'm really excited about it. And so there's a lot of opportunities like that for kids. And we got to, I used to say thank God for Mississippi, but Mississippi has lit a fire under their public education, and they're doing great, and we need to follow.
Well, we do, and we need to have those options in education. And I commend you for what you're doing on the state board, too, Martha. But one of the things I've talked about, wouldn't it be great if we could have all of our school boards around the state go out to our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and in the fall talk about the careers that are in the community? I mean, everything from being in the hospital or being a mental health professional to being in construction or hospitality or technology or whatever, manufacturing, whatever it is. Go in the fall, because these are experiential learners. They need to know what's out there. And then in the spring, take them on a field trip to go show them.
Yes.
Because they need to see it. And I actually brought this up in Wayne County. And so my friends in the Wayne County School Board and the Development Authority and the Chamber are actually doing this. Other organizations do it as well. But Governor Deal had talked to me about that, about how do we get kids to come back to non-urban parts of our state, and showing them what the options are and building that workforce and building the excitement of what, what possibilities are. I think there's a great partnership to focus on as well.
No, absolutely true. So how can people help you if they would like to do that?
Yeah, go to carforgeorgia.com. Come reach out to our campaign. Let us know, because the excitement is building. And look, this is a long way. We got 8 months till the primary on May the 19th. But I want to earn the vote and the support of all your listeners and everybody around this state because I truly believe Georgia can remain the model for the nation. But as you know this, Martha, this is a different world. You nominate the wrong Republican who simply cannot win statewide, and unfortunately we've done that in a couple of races, particularly in the Senate. Nominate the wrong Republican, and you will have a Gavin Newsom or a Jon Ossoff or Raphael Warnock-type governor in Georgia, and then that changes everything from a jobs and safety perspective. Because you can just look at the mayor's race in New York. This is a different world. Not everybody believes what we believe in the power of freedom and free enterprise and individual responsibility.
Chris Carr, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll see you on the trail.
Thanks, Martha. Appreciate it. Have a great week.
It's where North Georgia comes to talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Bill Crane's here with me today. And, Bill, I got to tell you, when I saw that, when the president came out and announced that Gaza proposal a couple of days ago, which he's now said Hamas has a certain amount of time to accept it or else he's going to authorize or allow Israel to do what they have to do to finish this. But it was, you had this, I couldn't believe the Arab countries that were supporting it. I couldn't believe, kind of how it was put together. You got Tony Blair involved that has been involved in the Middle East since he left the prime ministership. It was outside the box thinking that looked like it included all the big players. No, Hamas was not included in the negotiation, but to the point that Noah was making is that it finally isolates Hamas like they should be.
I was impressed. I watched the press conference afterwards. First thing I noticed when I saw the news coverage was that the president looked a little fatigued, but you're right and Noah was right. It did not focus on the partnership. I saw nothing in the news coverage that talked about all the other countries. I got that later. I did see an editorial. It was either the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times of London. I read both, and I apologize to be able to cite which one. It was complimenting Trump on this, as well as his his pivot, if you will, on Ukraine. But the president does need to remember he somewhat steps on his own headlines, because the same day that he saw President Netanyahu in the afternoon and announced this, he met with congressional leaders about the debt ceiling 3 hours later.
Right.
So this administration, when they have sometimes 6 or 10 things going on the same day, and he's on social media talking about the number of federal government employees he's going to lay off and the leverage to get Democrats, it does get lost. It kind of becomes a salad, and which story and which piece of the salad gets focused on. And so I would say for the administration, and particularly if Susie Wiles occasionally listens to your show, perhaps a little bit more discipline on big events like that having their own day, because that is the way you command the news cycle. When you've got 8 or 10 things, particularly stories that the national media is going to take a position on, the one you want necessarily going to get the sunshine on it.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by this, even though I don't have a lot of faith that Hamas is going to, give in. Yeah, but
I agree.
Yeah, but it was out of the box thinking, and I just think it's important.
Well, given the partnerships he's built in the Middle East, it's also important occasionally to flex that muscle. And, the first foreign state visits he made were to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the Middle East. And, of course, he has had the longstanding relationship with Bibi Netanyahu in Israel. So to play that card and then to layer atop that many of our European allies who we're sort of at odds with right now over other aspects of this, them giving recognition to the Palestine, et cetera, shows that this president is capable of détente and reaching deals and not necessarily agreeing with everybody in all things at all the time. It's not one of those situations where you're 100% with me or you're the enemy. And that I thought was very plus for the Trump administration.
Absolutely. And I think it really started, honestly, when he went to Saudi Arabia a few months ago in June, I think it was, and he said, I'm not trying to change your culture. What I want is peace with you, and I want to do business with you. Okay? It was a different message. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you have to be more like us. It was, we want peace and we want prosperity, basically was the message.
And he came out of there with trillions of dollars worth of commitments, some of which we're already seeing going into the ground here in America. So it was, I would say so far, it's probably his most successful trip abroad of this administration, not necessarily the first administration.
Absolutely. So the other issue I wanted to talk with you about is the government shutdown, because maybe I'm numb to this kind of stuff, because I know it really doesn't go anywhere. It is kind of catchy that they're calling it the Schumer shutdown, because it is a little catchy. You did have 3 Democrats vote. 1 Republican voted with the Democrats, and then 3 Democrats voted with the Republican. And they're going to have another vote today sometime. And there are a number of states that Democrats voted no, that they are in states that are Trump states. And also, it's the same CR that they voted on 13 times under Biden. So the funding they're talking about that they don't like in the big, beautiful bill doesn't come into play until the end of 26 and the beginning of 27.
Right. It's the extension of the Affordable Care Act. During the Biden administration and during the pandemic, the Biden administration increased the subsidies that were already in place for healthcare marketplace customers, I'm one, to receive against their premiums if they qualified. And that's an additional, the Democrats are asking for over, I think it's either 5 or 10 years, $1.5 trillion if those cuts are restored, and that they basically took it back down, eliminated those subsidies in the big, beautiful budget bill, but it doesn't take effect until 2027.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about state politics, because we've had more people get into the Democratic run for governor, and it seems like the field's a little stable on the Republican side.
Yeah, I will say, you and I had been talking for weeks, and we knew Secretary of State Raffensperger was going to get in. But on the Democratic side, you do have a second woman and 7 candidates, and I apologize. I'm not being rude. I cannot correctly pronounce her name, but she is a state representative from Gwinnett County, who is the state's first Muslim-elected state representative. She's also from Palestine, and she doesn't call herself a socialist Democrat, but she's the furthest wing of progressive of the Democratic Party, and very much anti-establishment, anti-GOP, anti-government in a lot of different ways. And so what I think she does is she further splinters that field, I think right now currently led by Keisha Lance Bottoms, of 5 of the 7 very progressive Democrats, with 2 rather centrist Democrats being Michael Thurmond, former CEO of DeKalb County, former state labor commissioner, and party convert and former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan. That's going to be, regardless of who you like or dislike, that's going to be an interesting way to watch.
Well, and I tell you, I just, I like Jeff Duncan. I met with him on his GOP 2.0. I don't understand what he's doing, because I don't know if he's a moderate Democrat. I don't know if he's, a former Republican. I don't know, because it's hard for me. It's almost like a road of Damascus conversion. You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden he has completely different positions than what he ran on. I mean, I stood out in his district when I was working precincts on my election in 2012. He was running in 2012. We waved signs together. We did speeches together. We did all kinds of things. And I'm not saying that people don't change their views. I've changed my views. You have people, but they usually stay kind of in the same ballpark. They might become more or less conservative or more or less liberal, but they usually don't
they change incrementally and over a period of time, and not a slate of issues all at once. It's a little too politically convenient, and it times out probably with the release of his next book, and perhaps more airtime when he doesn't become the nominee on CNN. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, if I were rooting for Democrats, I would root for Jason Estevez and Michael Thurmond. Those would be the 2 I'd be rooting for.
Well, Michael Thurmond is, I acknowledge, both a friend and someone who stylistically I think could bring a lot to the office. I think Jason Estevez is like Jason Carter. It's not his time yet.
It's not his time yet. Yeah,
very,
right.
Very talented, and is an up-and-comer in that party. But I will say one more thing about Lieutenant Governor. We have not seen successfully a Republican switch over to the Democratic Party and then get elected. We've seen plenty go the other way. And the last white Democrat elected statewide, male, in Georgia was Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor in 2004, 21 years ago. And when he got elected, as may happen here, if you were to have a Democratic governor and an all-Republican General Assembly, the Republican General Assembly on the state Senate side stripped Taylor of everything but presiding over the state Senate sessions and he was basically a figurehead lieutenant governor for 4 years and then went back to Albany, Georgia, which is where he's from. And I don't say that's going to happen to Jeff Duncan, but there hasn't been, except for some public service commission flukes, a white Democrat elected statewide.
Well, and what I do like about Estevez, and again, I don't know him that well. We're negotiating about having him come on for an interview, and I know he's very far left progressive, okay? But he's at least talking about small businesses in a smart way. And so I'm willing to listen a little more. I'm not going to vote for a Democrat. I mean, I can't. The only way I could see myself voting for a Democrat, I can't, maybe for Michael Thurman, if that was, I don't know who the other choice would be. You know what I'm saying? So he's one that I would at least consider. If it was him and a Republican, I probably would still end up voting Republican, though. But Jason, I want to get to know him better, because he is talking about small business in a very smart way.
He is, and again, like Jason Carter, he's making the right kind of connections. He's building a donor database. I'm sorry that he went ahead and before the session resigned his state Senate seat to focus on the campaign, because I do think he's one of the brighter bulbs on the Democratic side.
Well, and you get that exposure. You get that exposure being in the general session, even though you can't raise money.
That's one of those consultants that you and I both had experience with who have too much influence telling you, we need you full time. I need you smiling and dialing. I need you on the phone raising money. You don't have time to be a legislator. And unfortunately, that falls into the trap of, why are you doing or trying to do the next job instead of the job I paid and hired you to do?
Now, I will tell you, when I was 22 years old, I was working for a guy named Herb Blondheim at Rich's. One of my favorite guys in the world, was my first big boss. And he took me to lunch one day, and he said, Martha, you're going to be a really good buyer one day if you ever get there. You are focusing on the next job and not doing the job you're in. And I remember that advice from 22 years old, and I have given it many times, and I have taken it many times because he was absolutely right.
You dress for the next job, but you do the job you've got.
I like that. Bill Crane, thank you for being with me today.
Take care.
Putting the talk in news talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
Joining me right now is David Bossie from Citizens United, as well as has been involved in many issues on the conservative stage for as long as I've known him, and is a great spokesman for our views. And David, I think we're going to have, I'm hopeful that tomorrow when they come back in, that we might be able to just keep having these votes every day and showing that it's the Democrats that want to shut down the government. Has Rand Paul switched his vote? I looked yesterday, but I couldn't find it.
He didn't.
Not
he did
yet.
not that I know of. No,
Yeah.
And it's troubling. But he has, and his positions on
I understand.
spending.
Yeah.
And I get it. But I do believe if we get to 59. That
He'll
Rand
come over.
will,
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's trying to make his points, trying to earn. And by the way, he pulls our conference in the right direction generally on funding issues. So we'll see where that ends up. But look, this is a much bigger thing than just one guy. This is about right versus wrong. This is about the Democrat Party being so out of touch with the American people, and the Democrat Party being totally controlled. And look, folks like you and I, we know this as well as we know, waking up in the morning. But the American people are getting a belly full this week about Trump derangement syndrome. Anything he is for, they are against. It's common sense. That's what the president is espousing here. Common sense. A clean continuing resolution. Historically, that is what the Democrats have always supported. But because Donald Trump supports it, they're against it.
And voted on 13 times. Most of it while Biden was president. I mean, it is crazy. And what I understand the continuing resolution, the clean continuing resolution to be, is there were a couple of little shifts and some addition of security, money for security for Congress. But basically exactly what's been voted on the last 13 times. Now, do I like that we keep doing continuing resolutions? No, I don't. But John Thune...
No, you and I have been against them.
That's right. John Thune has said that they are close to actually finishing a budget on time and that they need the time to do it. And I think eventually, I hear there's a meeting, Dave, of 20 of these senators that, that are bipartisan, that are going to be meeting and talking today. And hopefully they're going to get the votes they need, because all they got to do is look at a map and look at the senators where Trump won, like my two senators, where Trump won, and they should be voting for this.
Well, your two senators are part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Amen to that.
Right? And your state needs to solve that, okay? Because
we're going to believe me.
It's to the detriment of Georgia, all Georgians, and being an University of Alabama fan, I don't really usually lose a lot of sleep over Georgia, but and I'm sorry about Saturday. Well, not sorry.
That's all right. I'm a double dog, but I can take it.
Oh, you guys dish it out. So you could certainly take it.
That's right.
For sure. So no, this is a problem that your state needs to fix, in that, if we didn't have those two left-wing leftists, just as hardcore, I don't call them progressive. They're just barely socialists. They are part of the problem. America has a 37 staring at a $38 trillion debt, and we have out of control spending that this president, this House, this Senate is trying to, for the last 8 or 9 months, trying to claw back so that we can sustain it, because we are on a track for bankruptcy. The American people are just starting. I don't believe they really understand it, but they're just starting to understand the gravity of the situation. And we need to make, as a nation, the tough choices today when we have the chance to make them, as opposed to them being made for us.
And No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, because there's going to be a moment in time. We don't know when that is. That's the problem. There's no calendar date, but we don't know when it is. But America's on track for insolvency, and we have to get our spending under control.
So I sent a message to Senator Ossoff. He used to come on the show. He doesn't come on anymore. But I sent a message to him
shocked.
Before the thing, and I said, look, bottom line is you had 50.6% of the vote, and in the last election, Trump won. What you're doing by voting no is just giving more power to Donald Trump, which I'm fine with for the moment. Okay? For the moment, I'm fine with Donald Trump having more power. And if you really believe what you say, then really, you're not being reasonable. So these Democrats are saying Trump is a despot, Trump is Hitler, Trump is this. But if you give us health care for illegal immigrants, we'll let you have what you want.
How outrageous is that? Let's just go back to your point of that senator. Not because Donald Trump, to extend your point, Donald Trump won the state of Georgia and won it pretty well.
Yes.
Your two senators are not representing those voters when it comes to President Trump's agenda. So they're in conflict. And so the American people are waking up to the fact that these leftists care more about illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, than they do American citizens. And we've been doing this together for a long time, but, Santelli, the guy from CNBC, famously said in the lead up to the Tea Party movement, now back 15 years ago, he said, America is going to be lost when there are more people drinking the water than carrying the water. And that's the watershed moment that we are in right now. We have to get our finances under control. So the left wants to spend $1.5 trillion, add it to the current spending budget that we don't have. We don't have the current budget, let alone $1.5 trillion additional dollars. We don't even have what is currently being spent, which is why there are many members of Congress, including some that we've talked about, that want additional spending cuts, that they want bigger cuts. And that's what the Democrats have done. They're allowing now a complete Russ vote, who is a hero. This guy is courageous. This guy is wicked smart. And the Democrats have now allowed Russ Vought the opportunity to go to the president and tell him exactly what he can do, how he can do it, and how he can make it permanent in the restructuring of our bloated federal bureaucracy. And that's what the American people want. That's what they voted for. And by the way, that's what's needed. It has to be done. We have to get our federal government under control, smaller, more efficient, better run government, which you could see this president's cabinet is running their agencies so much better than any time before in history.
And I want to say to folks, because we have these two senators that we have, you can make an impact by calling their office and by letting them know. But here's what I'll tell you, what I learned from working for a senator. Don't call the D.C. office. Okay? They don't really care because they're just going to work for somebody else. You got to call the local office because the people that work at the local office have a vested interest in that candidate. And they're going to actually put the message forward. And they care about the message more. Call the local office. Let them know you want them to vote for the continuing resolution. And if you do enough of that, we can make a change. And I want to ask you one more question, Dave. We talked about Rand Paul at the beginning, but you know Rand Paul's plan, which I think is the exact right plan for what we need to do to get our budget right. And I'm sure he's talked to Russ Vought about it. Is that you go back to 2019 spending, you adjust it for inflation. Maybe add a little bit more for defense or something like that. But you are basically $200 billion away from a balanced budget if you do that. And it's reasonable. It gets all the COVID money out of there. But nobody wants to be reasonable. It's so crazy.
Well, that's what it goes to my point earlier, common sense.
Yes.
That's what this president ran on. It's just two words, common sense. The president of the United States, Donald Trump, ran on it in 2024. He ran on it in 2016, obviously in 2020. But he made it a centerpiece of his reelection campaign was common sense. We are going to do things that, look, let's just use crime as an example. These blue cities, these blue states that did not vote for Donald Trump. Okay, Donald Trump isn't just sending in the FBI and National Guard into red states, into red cities, where people supported him to help them. He's doing it for every American. He wants every American to be safe. He is the president of all the people, not just some of the people. And so it's who he is, and it's common sense that he sends in the federal, whether it's National Guardsmen or FBI or whomever, into Chicago, into Portland, into Los Angeles, because those are the places that are out of control, crime-ridden, and the American people don't feel safe in those cities. And look what he just did with Washington, D.C. a month in. Washington, D.C. is a different place. And so it is incredible now what's going on. I think other mayors are seeing it.
It's because of what he did that AOC and Bernie Sanders could walk around D.C. yesterday filming a video and not getting in trouble. I'm telling you what, it was funny. David Bossie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Martha.
It's local radio, and that's why you're listening. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
When the cameras were rolling, Jon Ossoff used veterans to score political points, taking credit for a bill he had nothing to do with.
Protect American veterans.
Days later, Ossoff stabbed our veterans in the back, voting with Schumer to shut down the government. Because to Ossoff, free health care for illegals is the priority. But veterans, he couldn't care less. That means benefits offices shuttered, hotlines unanswered, and life-saving services denied. Jon Ossoff, stealing valor at our veterans' expense.
It is the Martha Zoller Show, and that's the new ad that Buddy Carter put out. He's running for Senate against Jon Ossoff, and he's joining us right now, Representative Buddy Carter. He represents the 1st District. And I got to tell you, Buddy, you are aggressive and going after these issues. You must have a great team around you helping you get on top of these things as quickly as you are.
Well, we do. After 32 years in business, it's not hard to figure out management. You just surround yourself with good people and you let them go at it. And that's what I did in business, and that's what I'm doing now.
So before we get to the shutdown discussion, you also this week, were a part of this signing of this deal with Pfizer related to drug costs. And I want to know your thoughts on it for two reasons. One, because you're a pharmacist, but two is I'm nervous about any deal with Pfizer, okay? Until they say they're not going to spend more money on advertising than they're spending on research and development, I don't trust any of these guys. So I just would love to know your thoughts.
Well, first of all, let's address the advertising part. I've never really understood pharmaceutical manufacturers advertising their drugs.
Seriously. My husband is a primary care doctor, and it makes him so mad because he is the person that has to prescribe it, and you are the person that has to fill it. It's the customer shouldn't be like going, "Oh, I need that drug." Anyway, sorry.
I know. You're going to walk into your doctor's office and say, "Hey, this is the drug I need. I saw it advertised on TV." Well, that's not the kind of cancer you have, folks. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But I will tell you, I do like what the president is trying to do in bringing down prescription drug prices. And he understands where the problem is. He understands it's with the middleman. Now, he's taken a little different approach than I would think that I'd like for him to take. I'd rather him attack the middleman directly. But he's trying to get at him, and he's putting pressure on them, and it will indirectly put pressure on them. Now, Pfizer, yeah, I question them because of the vaccines and everything. They really got a sweetheart deal with the vaccines. But, I do think it's a step in the right direction in bringing prescription drug prices down in America, and I applaud the president for what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's been a while since I had a baby, but my niece had a baby on July 4th, a July 4th baby. And there's like 71 vaccines they want to give to this newborn. And she pushed back on some of them, or a lot of them, actually. I think we need to have a real discussion about that, too, because an infant's immune system isn't even developed yet. Why are we introducing vaccines as while they're newborns?
Absolutely, and that's where Bobby Kennedy has come in with radical transparency. Is the way that I describe it. And we need that. We need people to understand and let the pharmacists and the physicians, along with the patient in consultation, make these decisions. Don't be forcing this upon people. That's the thing that I think bothers most people, is that you tell them you've got to have this vaccine. Now, in some cases, it may be a requirement. It may be necessary, but in the majority of cases, it needs to be through consultation with the patient, with the parent, or with the patient and the pharmacist and the physician.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the shutdown. Looks like they had another vote yesterday that was still 55 to 45. I think that if it gets to 59, and Dave Bossie pointed this out to me, and I kind of agree with this thought. If it gets to 59, then I think Rand Paul is going to come back over. I think he was trying to make a point. He's at least been consistent about his views on spending. This is not anything new with him. And he's voted his conscience quite a bit, even when it cost him. Okay, so I kind of respect that about him. But where are we? Because am I right that everybody got a paycheck on the 30th? Did everybody get a paycheck on the 30th, federal employees?
They did. And most importantly, our military did.
So this idea that really we got until the 15th of the month before anybody starts hurting from a paycheck basis, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct, particularly our military. And to your point about Rand Paul, I hope and I do feel like he will come around if we get to 59. But the point is that, look, the impact hasn't been felt yet, but it will be felt very shortly, especially by the 15th. Our military did get paid on the 1st, but if they don't get paid on the 15th, I've already sent a letter to House administration asking them to forego my salary until this is over with, and I'm not going to take anything until this is over with. But, when our troops don't get paid, when Social Security is questioned and whether you're going to get paid, or the VA benefits, or if seniors can't access telehealth, these things have a real impact, a real life impact. And that's what the Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Jon Ossoff, and the Democrats, they don't seem to care at all whether that happens or not. Well, I will tell you that they're going to hear about this, and they'll hear about it at the ballot box.
But to folks who get Social Security, because I know that the Democrats are floating that, but Social Security is a completely different fund, correct? I mean, we're not dipping into the general fund yet like we are with Medicare. It's all a completely different fund. So Social Security recipients have nothing to worry about, correct?
They do not. They should be getting paid, but there's always concerns. The government has to go in and pull out money from one pot to another pot, and for essential services, it could potentially. But the point you make is right, and that's one thing we have to keep in mind. But there are going to be services that are going to be impacted, particularly for our veterans and particularly for our seniors. And that both of those groups are going to suffer.
Well, and I know you're running for Senate, and I think one of the things that really bugs me the most about our senators, and to some degree, with the exception of Johnny Isakson, I think even Republicans make this mistake. They get up in that bubble, and because it's a very exclusive club, it's 100 people. It's one of the most exclusive clubs in the world, and they start acting like. They start playing hard to get, if you know what I mean. They don't talk to their constituents anymore. They don't, you got to get through 14 levels of people. I worked for a United States Senator, okay? I know how this goes, and I fought hard against it then. I hope that if you're elected to the Senate, that you're going to be that guy that's going to still do the videos, that are going to still talk to people about what's happening and kind of do it in real time. There is no reason why you can't, or whoever is a United States Senator cannot inform the people in real time about what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. And we've done that, and we will continue to do that. Look, we got three major candidates in this race right now. One is the son of a legendary football coach, another's the son of a congressman. I'm the son of a shift worker in a paper mill. My dad would have been 88 yesterday if he were still alive. And I'll never forget the means by which I grew up, and that I take that with me for everywhere I go.
Absolutely. So, what do you think's going to happen in the next few days?
Well, nothing's going to happen
If you were a betting man.
Right. There's not going to be any votes in the Senate today because of the Jewish high holiday, Yom Kippur. But tomorrow they will vote again. I suspect it will not pass. We had a conference call yesterday with the Speaker. He indicated to us that the earliest we could expect to be back in would be Monday afternoon. We may go back in Monday afternoon if something passes through the Senate, but it won't be before then.
And obviously you've passed something, the House has. The only reason why you'd have to come back in is if they change something in it in order to get some votes, right? Because if they just
exactly right.
If they just pass what you sent over there, then the president will sign it.
That's right, and it's all over with, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But for 7 more weeks or however many more weeks. So how close are we, buddy, to actually getting back on regular order? Because my thought is we should do a continuing resolution all the way to next September, even though I hate continuing resolutions. But then we've got to really hold people's feet to the fire about doing regular order for this next budget year.
And there is a possibility we could get our appropriations done before November 21st, which is when this CR that we passed out of the House with the Republican majority expires. And Tom Cole and the Appropriations Committee, they are doing their job. We've already passed 60% of our appropriation bills. Now, the others are tougher. There's no question about that. But we can do it if we set our mind to it. And if we stay together in the Republican majority, we could get this done before November 21st. And why is that important? It's important for a number of reasons, not the least of which, what you just mentioned about CRs and not liking them. This CR is still an extension of the Biden-Harris administration. So the policies and the priorities reflect the Biden-Harris administration and not the Trump administration.
Yeah, absolutely. They voted for this 13 times before. They voted yes plenty of times. Okay, so
sure
they need to vote. And if you're a Democrat senator, first of all, our Georgia folks need to call our Democratic senators and call the Atlanta office, because the D.C. people don't care, because they're going to work for whoever the next senator is, in some office. Okay, the way you get your message through is by calling their local office. And then we've got to get this going. And if you're a Democrat senator in a state that Trump carried, you need to be rethinking your vote.
I would agree, especially with two Democratic senators from the state of Georgia, which is a Republican state. It's a red state.
Yes, it is.
They're
yes,
not representing our values. And I have sent a letter to both of these senators, both of our senators, encouraging them to forego their salary during this time as well.
Absolutely. Buddy Carter, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.